Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's better on draft.
Welcome, everybody, to the Michigan Series episode number 26. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. We are live just as we are nearly every Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern on betterondraft.tv, facebook.com/betterondraft, and twitch.tv/bod podcast. If you're listening to the video on YouTube, which means you listen to it after we were live, go check out the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere that you get podcasts. And of course, if you're listening to the podcast, go check out the video on YouTube. Once again, my name is Ken. I am drinking a Fudgy Kruger oatmeal stout. I got a really fun little can art right there for sure. We got Rob over there. Rob, what are you drinking?
First, shout out to Leland McCann, one of the makers of said beer that you were drinking. I'm kind of double fisting right now. I have from Big Lake Brewing, I have the Cotton Candy Haze. And also from Athletic, I have my Wits Peak, which is their NA wit beer.
Nothing like going a little half and half to keep your buzz going. Wendy, what do you got?
Well, I too am double fisting today. I also have the Fudgy Kruger from Big Lake, one of my favorites actually right now. But I also have the volume number 2 of the exploratory IPA series from Big Lake.
Well, I'm sure we're going to get into plenty of these beers as we bring in Zachary from Big Lake Brewing. What are you drinking, Zachary?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm actually a little behind. I was pre-gaming one. I'm only halfway through, but this is our 7th Street IPA, which is only available at our pub on 7th. But on deck, I have all the ones I sent you so we can drink them together.
Perfect. Well, you might be catching up to us a little bit, and we don't want you to drink 3 16-ounce cans in a 55-minute time frame. So we'll make sure to go a little spread it out a little bit more. But first, why don't you explain to us, Big Lake Brewing, you guys are out in Holland, Michigan. Give us a little bit more where you guys are located, when you guys started, and what you do there.
We are located on 7th Street, just a block off of the main downtown strip in Holland. And they started in 2013 on the north side. They had a little smaller, no restaurant pub, and then outgrew that, started a production facility, which is where I eventually came in. I run the production facility, and then they opened a downtown restaurant, bar, the full, pretty large building, pretty cool place.
Now, explain to me the Fudgy Kruger a little bit. Let's get into this first beer before we get a little bit deeper into your guys' history. What is the Fudgy Kruger? It's an oatmeal stout. It's got a decent amount of adjuncts in there with lactose, cocoa nibs, and vanilla beans. Was this your recipe? What'd you put into it? Do you guys do variations of it? Give us a little breakdown of this beer.
Well, this was a kind of a fun one that we did probably 3 years ago now. Our distributor, Imperial Beverage, had a internal competition where their employees could brew separately or as teams, I believe it was. And they invited me and our sales guy at the time down there to judge them. And we were going to brew the winning beer. So it ended up being that beer. It was just delicious. So we ended up brewing it with them, had them guys over. And it was good enough that we just kept on brewing it. So it has a lot of that adjunct type stuff in it, but it's got a lot of body, a lot of sweetness. It's only 5.5%. So it's not like it's a giant stout that you can't, drink a couple of kind of a thing. So it's a year-round product. We have it on Mackinac Island, that sort of thing too, to kind of run that whole fudge thing. So, and then recently this, early spring, we're a little bit slower through the wintertime. So our brewers wanted to do a double version of that. So we did, and we put it in whiskey barrels. And then I think we have a maple whiskey barrel too of that, just for like a pub only thing. So that one should be like 14-15% area, but have the same profile of the one you're drinking right now. So we're all kind of super excited about that for next winter.
Well, the one thing I want to ask before we keep going is a lot of people, obviously, when you're taking IPs from movies and TVs and naming it after, naming your beers after them. Have you heard from Wes Craven or Robert Englund or something like that based on the beer itself? Because there's a lot of it's close.
Yeah, we did. We kind of had like kind of some R&D on how we made it a little bit different and that sort of thing. And with the label design and that sort of thing, it actually ties into Mackinac Island with the fudge and the I forget even what it is, M182 or whatever it is,
M185.
around the island. So that's the one. So we kind of tried to get it different enough, sort of thing. And there is an Elm Street on the island as well.
Well, that's interesting. That's a good homage, obviously, to the character itself. Dan has just joined us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan. What is it are you drinking over there?
Oh, I'm actually kind of excited. I haven't opened this yet. I hope you guys aren't drinking it or haven't started yet. But I got this mango habanero haze sitting here in my hand. Kind of excited about that. Actually started off with Fudgy Kruger too, so pulling a neck with the double fisting. Really enjoying that one so far.
Yeah, we were just talking about the Fudgy Kruger. I think a lot of us wanted to go directly for that because it's it's a very, very good beer. It's not overly sweet. It's not overly boozy. And as much as I make fun of a lot of brewers that add just loads and loads of adjuncts into their beers, it's got a very good balance, which is something that I appreciate. Now, Big Lake Brewing, how long have you guys been in Holland?
The kind of inception, I believe, was like 2009 where they started the process, but they officially opened in 2013. So we're doing our 9th year anniversary party on July 5th.
What do you mean the different years? Like, how does that factor in?
Well, with alcohol, production and all that stuff. So starting to file the paperwork for licensing and all that stuff and brewery planning obviously takes longer than just the day you opened. So it was 3 guys that brewed together, and it took them a couple of years to put everything together to actually open. So kind of the idea started officially back in like 2009, but the opening date was in 2013.
Now, you've been there for 5 years. What did you do before? Yeah. Were you brewing somewhere else, or?
No, I had a family farm that I worked at, and my wife actually brought me a homebrew kit when we got married. This is like 13, 14 years ago or something like that. And we knew a blueberry farmer mutually, and they heard that they had a hard time getting reliable grain pickup to get rid of their spent grain, instead of just throwing it in a dumpster. And they were obviously getting bigger and needed a more suitable way to get rid of that. So we used it for our cattle, actually, and then ended up becoming friends with the guys and brewed some homebrew beer that they liked. And then they let me brew a guest beer that went over well at the pub, and eventually another one. And then they offered me a part-time job. So I took a day a week away from the farm and eventually worked up to taking over the production facility.
And just because we live in the east side of the state, is the production facility and the brewery owned by the same organization? Is it separate? Yep. Do you guys brew the same beers at both places?
Yeah, we kind of do. A lot of times we'll use that pub system for pub only stuff, or experimentals, R&D, that sort of thing. And then once we have something that's going to go out to distribution throughout the state, that'll go to the production facility, which is on my end. But we do have, it's all the same company. They're both in Holland. So, we'll have our production beer on tap at the pub. And then usually the pub stuff all stays at the pub, but sometimes we'll do some special one-off stuff for the market as well.
I guess I'm going to jump in here. Actually, I want to talk, start with this one beer that I have. I went a little different, and I have the Cotton Candy Haze. And it is described on the can as a cotton candy flavored, juicy New England IPA. Can you talk to us about this one and like what? I mean, should I be getting? I feel like I'm getting some cotton candy. It's not as much, I guess, I would think I was going to get. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of a fun beer. We have like a fruited haze line where it's all like the 6% normal New England IPA. And then we use different flavors. So we have a blackberry, a blood orange, tangerine, that sort of thing. And then one of our Imperial distribution drivers who would come pick up every Monday and we'd talk beer. He's a craft beer guy. And he says, man, I've been pitching this idea to these other breweries I'm picking up at, and everybody's laughing at me, but you got to put cotton candy in it. So I says, well, I'll try it. You know, who cares? Maybe it's good. So we tried it, and it took off from there, and it was our top seller last year. All just, you know, from a guy who's passionate about craft beer's idea that nobody else would listen to. And there's other companies doing cotton candy beers, so we tried some of them, and we didn't like how they were a little bit too much and a little too sweet, and you couldn't get the hops. So we decided to have a little bit less forward on the cotton candy and still have it be a beer. But as you probably know, everybody's taste buds are different, so you can scroll through Untapped and, you know, see, well, there's way too much cotton candy, and then the next one says I don't pick it up at all. So we kind of tried to play a little bit easy to not make it too off-putting for other people, which seemed to pay off because we're selling quite a bit of it.
Yeah, I think for me, like when and it is a very it is a very bright can that just really tells you that there's going to be cotton candy here. So like I guess for me, like I want that to just kind of explode and have that cotton candy flavor going out there, and just like that taste of sweet and marshmallow, but probably just kind of lending to what you're saying is that not too terribly sweet, because then it's just going to be a one can deal. And I'm not, exactly. It's like, I don't want to have, you know, I guess for failure of another term, I don't want to have diabetes with a beer. And
yes, and I've heard that term used before as well.
So yes, so I guess going on to about, you know, Haze, and, you know, obviously with cotton candy Haze, you guys recently hosted a Haze Craze Weekend.
Yeah,
and that included a 5K. You had the beer garden, a pub crawl. Where did that idea come from, and, you know, how did it go?
Well, it was actually, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was a brainchild of one of our old sales guys, our old sales director, who actually works for our distributor now. So we still work with him every day. Great guy, but he had the idea to try to bring people into Holland before Tulip time, so we're not jumping over anything too, and it would be an opportunity for some of the local bars to maybe go out of their, you know, mainstay comfort zone and try some new things from craft brewers. So. And luckily for me, it was us putting it on, so it was our beer. So we ended up sending in quite a bit of beer to local pubs downtown and generating quite a bit of foot traffic. We have the social district in downtown Holland, so people could walk from bar to bar and that sort of thing. And then we did some feature beers that were only available at our pub too, to get people over to us as well. So it seemed to go over quite well, where we're pretty happy with it. And being our first year, we got nowhere to go but up for next year.
Nice. Well, I see Nick joined the group. How you doing, man? And
we were talking about diabetes earlier.
Sounded a bit far away, but I was curious since now.
Because it's only the third time I'm using this microphone. Are we doing
Rookie.
Yeah, you're very, very low, Nick.
Hold on. Skip me for now.
All right. We'll get back to what you're drinking in a minute.
I picked the wrong microphone. How's that?
There we go. There we go. Now, and since you're no longer in the tunnel, tell us what you're drinking.
Well, since we have Big Lake here tonight with us, I got the Exploratory IPA Series Volume 2, and talk about Haze, the Mango Habanero Haze, which I'm about to crack open here in a second.
Spicy. Say Dan is getting ready to crack that himself, because you know how much he loves the spicy beers that, you know, Ken does not.
I thought we all knew that Ken loves spicy beers.
We know
just as much as Dan loves pumpkin.
Ooh, I was not going to go there, because
I was hoping I get pumpkin beers. So
I went there.
That always starts something. But actually,
table being flipped.
Right. But I guess segueing into some beers that may cause some problems. You know, as some have seen on the shelves, there's two beers that Big Lake makes that probably create some division. And I kind of want to talk about those And, with these two, I would imagine that there's always a debate when it comes to those who are rabid beavers, aka members of the University of Michigan, and those of the smarter kind that are with Michigan State. And of course, there's the two beers I'm referring to is Haze and Blue and Sparti Parti. What brought on making beers that would cause such, I don't want to say divisiveness, but creating two beers that definitely kind of go towards that rivalrous community that we have in Michigan?
Well, that was once again our old sales guy, my good buddy Keith, and he thought that would just generate sales, and I took that idea, tried to make it fun. So, what better way in Michigan to tie Haze and Blue together than with blueberry? So we make it's the similar base beer than cotton candy. They're not the same hops and stuff like that, but similar. We use blueberry in that. And then I'm, being from the farm and the agricultural program, I'm a little bit more of a fan of Michigan State. So we made a different IPA with that and bumped the alcohol up to 7% because we're more fun.
Yes, we do. We do burn couches, so we need that extra ABV.
But right. To say we burn couches at Wayne State too, just not during school, college sports events.
That's called a Tuesday, Nick.
That's a Tuesday night at a frat house, but they don't use gasoline; they use Everclear.
That is great. Yes, the Staters do love the party, and that's okay because we yeah. Not your little one either. I'm going to pass it on to Wendy because Wendy's got a couple.
So you mentioned when we were talking about the Fudgy Kruger that it came from a homebrew competition.
Mm-hmm.
And I read earlier that you guys also did another homebrew competition winner, produced that at the beginning of the year. What was that about?
Oh, yeah, that was Andrew Bowers won the Siciliano Homebrew Cup in Grand Rapids with a English best bidder. And same deal. It was early in the year, like when we brewed that double fudgy, and we're like, man, we got some open tanks before we get rolling for summer. And Steve emailed me and said, hey, do you want to brew this? Because I almost forgot about it, but I had offered to them, back in 2018 or 2019 that we would love to brew, the winner, because I had entered that competition many years before that home brewing and, spent many a time at Siciliano's. So I love that place. I love Steve. And I offered it years ago and he finally took me up on it. And I says, well, hell yeah, let's do it. So we got to meet Andrew, got to work with his recipe, had him out on brew day. He got the chance to take a day off work. We did it on a Friday and we brewed that beer just how he said, and we designed a label and all that stuff together, and we got to work together on it, and then got a bunch of it in Siciliano's for all the homebrew buddies of his that could go buy it from there. So that was a lot of fun to be able to brew that for him.
That's awesome. It seems like you guys do a lot to support the homebrewers in your area. Is there any other programs that you guys are a part of?
Yeah, we did. Doug Hogel from the Primetime guys, the Homebrew Club in Grand Rapids, he won with their Octo Brew Fest. I think it was the fall before COVID. So we didn't get a chance to brew it for another year and a half or so, but I says, well, we're going to brew the winner that year. So we brewed it anyway. And he had like a 7% Marzen. So we called it Uber Octo, I think, for Uber Octo beer. And yeah, I come from homebrewing. Most of the guys I still hang out with, I met at the homebrew clubs and stuff like that. So I still go to the clubs, meetings and stuff like that. And most of the guys I hang out with, we did a big thing for Big Brew Day at a friend of mine's house and brewed together. And I still like that community, and that's still the friends I hang out with to this day. So we like to keep that going.
That's awesome. So I am a big fan of traveling for beer, and you are in a perfect town for people to travel to. So I'm curious, why should we visit your tap room?
Well, the building alone is just super cool. It was a brewery like 30 years ago. So there's a lot of history there, and it's an older building than that, obviously. Obviously all my beer's there, so it's great, right? But we also have a really killer restaurant, and it's just kind of like a big sweeping bar, and we got a 7-barrel pilot system with glass and all that stuff, and you can see all the old original wooden rafters. It almost looks like if you were in an upside down wooden ship and you could see the joist going over the ceiling, it looks like that. So it's just a really cool place. Beautiful patio outside. In fact, we kind of grew from a pretty small place. So the owner and I together hung all the string lights up top and all that stuff together and built the fence and all that. So it's kind of cool to be that hands-on and see a place grow into a really cool beer garden and fire pits and all that stuff. Great staff. So it's kind of got all the stuff that you would want in a place to go. Plus we have a small core people that help put it together over the years that are still there, which is kind of fun.
Awesome. Any fun events coming up that you want to plug?
Yeah, we're doing the anniversary party on July 5th, which we do every year, for the people that are still in town, didn't go on vacation. And we usually try to do some stuff a little bit different. So we'll do, the mainstay stuff, have a grill outside, do hot dogs, hamburgers, that sort of thing. But we like to pull out some of the barrel aged beer that we have saved. There's a half keg of that kind of a thing. And just tap it for one day only. It might be stuff we haven't had on for years. And just for the people that take the time to go out, they kind of get something special. And then in the fall, we're doing a little Oktoberfest on the back patio thing too. But dates aren't nailed down yet for that, but definitely look for that for sure.
That's awesome. Dan, I know you're dying to talk about that beer.
I am. Absolutely. I've been waiting here for a while. So I had a chance to try it. First off, talk to us a little bit about what made you go habanero. That is typically, there are some beers out there I'm going to talk about in a second. What made you decide to go with habanero to put into this beer? First off.
That was a great input from our pub staff. They thought it would be kind of cool. We have a lot of guys who like hot peppers. They grow their own, the whole thing. So it ended up where we just tried it, and thought, well, I'll make a small batch of it, like on our small pilot system, and just see what people like, using peppers and trying to find a blend of spices that would work. And then of course, when you're doing such a small batch and you're only using a couple peppers, you get a hot batch, you get a cold batch, so it was inconsistent, but it ended up selling so well that we ended up doing a bigger batch of it to scale that we could make more consistent. And it's been just a killer ever since. We only did like maybe one drop of it last summer, or it was actually even maybe last fall. It was pretty late in the year for a mango style beer, and it just flew off the shelves. So we've been brewing it, keeping it at the pub since, and we have it for this summer now as well. It's subtle on the hot because I don't like hot in my drinks really. It's there, but you can finish it and maybe even have another without getting too bogged down, unless you're a pepperhead like one of my brewers, and he's like, I don't even get it. I just drank 4 of them and I don't get it.
That's the first thing that came to mind, because the habanero is very subtle in it. You do get it on the back end especially. And, the beer I walked in comparing it to was habanero sculpted. That was a mainstay of the show in the early days, and I was drinking it like water when we first got the start all these years ago. So it is definitely a subtle difference. I would, it'd be nice if it did have a little more heat. I'm the same way. So I definitely get though, if you don't enjoy that, but I want to switch gears a little bit here. You got started in home brewing. Let's talk a little bit about that. Talk to us about the first batch of beer you ever brewed.
Well, this is, I'm not embarrassed to say either, by the way, but she bought me a Jim Cook, Sam Adams kit. So I got the plastic bucket and the DVD, and I watched the whole DVD, and it was like, well, we didn't have chillers or anything, right? So it was freeze a milk jug of water and dump your boiling wort into the bucket, and then dump that giant 1 gallon chunk of ice in there to chill it down. And, a couple of them turned out good enough to make me keep going, and most of them didn't. But it ended up keeping me going, and then finding some friends that were in it as well, learning from podcasts like your guys's and other ones that were around a long time ago, and learning from there and trial and error until we ended up getting something that tasted pretty good and going from there.
Awesome. Now, what made you decide you could switch from home brewing to opening a brewery? That's always a great question I like to hear the answer to.
Well, it was easy for me because the brewery was already established and I knew the guys. So once we ended up trading beers back and forth and they really liked what I had, and we brewed a guest beer on there, then all of a sudden the guest beer was selling, one of the top sellers at the pub. So then when they needed a part-time guy, I could take a day off of my normal job. And then it ended up building from there until they hired me full time. So it was an easy shoe-in. It wasn't, I didn't have that quit your job and start a business, trepidation that a lot of guys did. Like my boss, he went through all that too and worked 2 jobs to try to make it work. And he did all the hard work. I got to do all the easy stuff and then just start brewing beer.
That's great. Talk to us about one style of beer that you haven't made yet that you'd like to bring on for everyone to try. Maybe something you've made home brewing, but you haven't brought to production yet.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, there's one that we joke about around the brewery that hasn't gotten made yet. It's called Camper Special. It's a version of our normal camper New England that we have, but it's like the special one, the next one, the one that's released a couple times a year or whatever. It's way higher in alcohol. It's got hops that don't have to fit in the budget, kind of a thing. But we haven't fit it in yet, so that might come. And then other ones too, like I like brewing with the wacky stuff too. That's why brewers have that creative power. But doing something that's 49% fruit and 51% beer, stuff like that, but making it shelf stable and being able to sit on chain shelves and stuff like that is so hard. We've done some of that pub only, but that kind of stuff where you don't have to be handcuffed by the business side of things is stuff that I'd really like to do.
All right, Nick, you had a question?
I do, as a matter of fact. Really quickly, piggybacking off of Dan with the mango habanero haze. I agree, totally on the back end, very chill, very mellow. I'm a big jalapeno pepper guy. Tried a habanero once by itself, and it was the worst experience ever. So this is a nice, refreshing change. It's there, very subtle, but it's a refreshing change, and I agree. Question following up this: is there any chance for something hotter than habanero in mind that you would love to try to experiment with? Not put out into the pub, but maybe just to try with your staff. Maybe something a little bit more hotter than a habanero. Have you thought about that at all?
Well, we did last winter. We did 8% stout, I believe, with Carolina Reaper, I believe it was.
Oh, geez.
And that was a little hot. That one, we had to clean the lines like for 48 hours straight to get that out of there. And then luckily we just replaced our lines anyway, like a month later, because it was due. So it didn't really matter. Yeah. But I have done home brewing, which I would love to do to kind of piggyback on both your questions. Is I did a summery pale ale with hardly any hops in it. So hardly a pale ale with fresh jalapenos in it right before knockout. And it didn't really isomerize that oil or whatever from the pepper. So I don't know if you guys remember, but you guys remember those salsa verde Doritos that were popular like 15, 20 years ago?
Oh, those were amazing. I wish they'd bring those back.
They were amazing, but this beer was that, where you could just keep eating them. It was jalapeno flavor, but it didn't have the back heat. It was almost refreshing. I'd love to do one of those, but I don't know how it would work in the market, but that would be kind of fun.
Okay.
Another one I like doing is like Shorts did that Nicey Spicy for years. I don't know if they still do, but I love peppercorns in a wheat beer. I played around with that home brewing, but that's really good too.
All right. So definitely no stranger to spicy in beers at Big Lake, especially in your own time at home brewing. That's
right.
Cool. So we mentioned another one of the beers that I'm drinking is the Exploratory series.
Yeah.
This is volume 2. You had mentioned that you were looking to break the mold with this series and produce something that nobody's ever done before. What are these beers to you and to the people that come, or your staff, and what makes them so unique?
This was one example where we didn't have to make the books work to do it, kind of a thing. We brewed it when we had some downtime over the winter, and we did Exploratory 1, which sold out of our distributor, at least in a matter of like 2 days. So we decided to do the second one, and it was basically an idea for us, brewers and cellarmen that work for me, to be able to decide what to make without having to think about cost and whether this is going to be the next mainstay. Like, this is just a one and done for us to have fun and to have, guys like us who love craft beer try it but it's not going to be the next KBS where it's at every mom and pop shop and chain store in the whole world, or even like Two Hearted when it used to be seasonal and now it's everywhere. This is it. This isn't going to ever come back in its form. We're using it to trial experimental grains, hops, some processes, and we're going to learn from it, obviously, but also we're going to try to get some cool new flavors. So this one in particular has that cryopop blend from Yakima that they came out with a year or two ago, which we've never used before. It's pretty expensive, but we thought, why not try it? And then one of my brewers said, well, why don't we use a little Vienna malt and kind of give it a little color, give it a little bit more meat on the bones, so to speak. So we did that too. And it was just kind of fun for us while we're sitting there in the back of a windowless warehouse to be able to brew something that we wanted to brew, not necessarily something that had to fit in a 10-year plan of a business.
So I'm drinking number 2, volume 2. Are we only up to number 2? And he's got number 2 as well. We're only up to volume 2 right now as we sit here, correct?
Yeah, we did number 1 in January. So I'm surprised we got number 2 out this quick, honestly, because number 1 sold really well. It was kind of like what we talked about before with some of the other beers where we have time to fill them. We have open tanks, but when we get summer rolling around, we got to keep the mainstays, we got to get the cotton candies going and the blood orange, and we got to keep our tanks full of that stuff. So when we get a couple free tanks and, an open fermenter here or there, then we throw something like this in. So we probably won't see anything like this again until probably next spring, because usually about January we get some free tanks after we're done brewing the stouts and porters and stuff like that for the winter season.
Okay. All right. Well, now, so you that kind of segues into my last question before I pass it on over to Ken. You had mentioned open tanks. You guys have gone from a half barrel system to 3 barrel to now 15. It's my understanding. Yep. Where do you see Big Lake going as the next step? Do you see it holding at 15 for a while? Do you see it doubling? Where do you see growth going for Big Lake over the next couple of years? You guys have been around since 2009, brew pub opening in 13, if I'm correct.
Yep.
Where do you see, what's the 5-year or 10-year plan for Big Lake right now?
Well, that's a good question. It's something I think about a lot because that's exactly what I'm in charge of, and we grew real fast in the last 4 years. And that's been something we've been trying to forecast instead of, have to adapt to. We're trying to plan it out a little bit. I think that 15 barrel system is going to do us well for a while because we have 30 barrel fermenters. So we double turn right now and we're out of room in the physical building. That's our only problem. We brew 4 days a week. We could brew 5-6 days a week. We could have second shift and we could turn that system way more. I'm pretty sure Oddside still uses the same size system and they're like double the size of us. So with some good labor and a better facility, we could keep that thing around for a long time. Our internal goal would be, we'd be happy at 7,500 to 10,000 barrels and still be in just Michigan and not leave the state.
Oh, wow. Okay. One last, now I'm starting to think it slipped my mind here. It says, you can see it's been a very, very long day in Nick's household. Where was you know what, Ken, I might have to save it for my last question. So I'll turn it back over to you.
No problem. By the way, I think the Nick household, I think you should just change it to the Paglia Palace. I think it has a really nice alliteration name to it. You guys are actually running based on what the BA had posted out about half of what Oddside is. So you guys basically could grow twice as much production wise if you're mirroring Oddside ales with production. So plenty of room to grow. As a person, you're trying to guess what people want to drink. You're trying to guess where people are going. Where do you see the end of 2022, 2023, like not necessarily the trend of beer, but where do you see open opportunities that you want to take advantage of?
Well, we've kind of always been a growing small craft brewery where anything we brew that's new will usually sell. But I think that some of the excitement from just like I think it was mentioned earlier too about just throwing more crap in it and trying to get people to buy it. I think that might be going away a little bit. So we're doubling down on mainstays and coming up with more core brands that will fit a wider audience, and just brewing, really good quality beer, and not necessarily just having a new one every week that you got to struggle to find. And then if you missed it, you missed it. We're obviously still going to do that. We're still going to do the exploratory. We're still going to do barrel aged stuff, but we're going to focus on quality placements everywhere, because we're kind of in that weird spot where we grew kind of fast. But if you grew up in a different town, you might not have ever seen our beer, because we're not that saturated yet. We're in a lot of the hot spots. So I think what you'll see is you'll see a little bit more of our, core 6 beers or whatever it happens to be next year out a little bit more reliably. And that's working with our distributor and seeing what their sales plans are going to be and what they want to see as well. Because we can't just, force it on them and say, here, go sell this. And they're like, well, what is it? We got to have a plan first. So I kind of like having the exploratory type beers that we can do something new on, new stuff at the pub, obviously all the time, barrel age programs and that. But we're going to try to, for lack of a better term, not be a 500 barrel a year brewery where we can just do whatever we want, but try to grow into more of a structured big boy brewery type thing too, but also not lose our edge where it comes to making new and fun things.
Now, having looked at your Untapped page, I saw back in the days before you, they were actually making mead, and you guys currently have had some ciders on rotation. Do you do anything with the ciders, and can we expect anything else with that winemaker's license that you guys do over there in the future?
I don't think so. I've done it at home quite a bit in the past, but not for Big Lake. That was a diversity program when we were on our north side pub where we didn't have food. So if you only had beer, you were really limiting your clientele. So then we made ciders and meads, and we still have some at our new pub too, but it's not probably going to be a big focus for distribution. So we'll just have to see how it goes. I'm not saying it can't happen, but we'll probably stick to beer. And then at the pub, we have wine, we have ciders, and we do have our distiller's license at the pub, which is pretty cool. So they're doing cocktails and things like that to not, have a family come in or a group of friends from work and then have, somebody not be able to find something they like.
I think that's always the big thing still with breweries is the negative connotation that, one, a lot of places don't serve food because it's just going to be beer, and then two, it's just beer only. So a lot of people are afraid to go to breweries to do it, which is why one of the reasons we created the Michigan Brewery Map App. If you go to mibeermap.com, download it, you can actually find breweries that serve spirits, that serve cider, wine, etc., so that your friend that only drinks wine, quote unquote, because we know she'll chug Fireball, the friend that only drinks wine, you can go in and you can get them to a brewery that serves food or a brewery that serves wine. I do want to bring up something, because you guys did something at the end of last year that means a lot to someone like me, because you guys did a event called the Battle of the Breweries up in the Sioux. You went up against, I believe it was Ordock Brewing, and the whole point was at the Wicked Sister, it was for the hospice of the Eastern Upper Peninsula. Kind of explain what the event was about, what you brewed for it, and maybe give us a recap of what happened, including, how much money you guys raised.
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up, because one fortunate thing to come out of the last few years was that I got to do that twice, because the first year was virtual. And I actually did it right here with the same backdrop. Kathy at the Wicked Sister's great. She does it every year for Hospice of the EUP. And Blaine from Ordock is their sales guy, and he's killer. He's a good buddy of mine. We hang out at all the conferences. I text him periodically. He is a great salesman. So we get the food menu that the kitchen staff at the Wicked Sister set up ahead of time. And they take their own time to do all this outside of restaurant stuff and really make a really cool 5-course meal. I believe it was 5. And we have to pick a beer pairing that we think would go good from our stock of beer, that it usually has to be like an actual production beer, or at least something in volume, because it has to go to the Wicked Sister and be on tap. Once we get our menu pairing together, typical fashion would be you get all the courses out, and they'll have voters tickets where they can cast their vote for, in our case, it was Ordoc or us, for how the beer was and how it was paired with that course. And the brewery with the most votes at the end wins. And the first year we did it virtual. It was really fun to do because we were all sitting here cooking. So, I mentioned Keith before. He was sitting here talking, and I'm over here with like a hot plate in the barn here, like a Coleman stove, and we're trying to prepare the dishes, as the chef would, which was kind of fun. And then last year we got a redo because, Blaine's awesome over there and Ordoc's great. So they beat us. And then in person too, we were way closer. Keith unfortunately got sick, so he couldn't come. But I went up there anyway and, saw Kathy up there and did the whole thing with Blaine. And they had some really killer beer. The food was amazing. Just the flavor combinations were outstanding. We brought some good stuff there, and they beat us. I don't know if it was like 115 votes. They beat us by like 5, something like that. So it was really fun to do, and we generated a ton of money. I don't hardly want to guess because I don't want to guess it wrong, but I want to say it was something like 13 grand or something like that. And then, they got raffles and like an auction type thing. So we donated a brewery tour and, a sizable gift card to come down and see us and that sort of thing. But those people up there are good people. I love the UP, and especially Kathy at the Wicked Sister for doing all that for us. And now I think next year Blaine is up against Black Rocks. So I almost want to go up there and just crash it for fun, but we'll have to see how that goes.
See if you can get them to, try to pay for your vote one way or the other. Yeah.
Well, I'll still probably vote for Blaine because I know him. I don't think I know any of the Black Rocks guys, but man, it was a fun time to do it last year.
According to the website from the Sioux News, just so we can get a little bit of information in there, since they started doing the event back in 2015 at the Wicked Sister in the Sioux, they've raised over $40,000. Mm-hmm. So it's an amazing event. Obviously, if you are in the area, make sure you go, participate, have fun, go drink some amazing beers, and enjoy the dinner. Of course, that gets paired with the beers. Before we wind down, my final question before we get into our final questions, but I don't think it was asked. It's not highlighted that it was asked, but I want to make sure we get it in there. So the exploratory series, I had it. I'm going to be honest, it's not my bag. I'm not an IPA guy, so this just isn't for me. So I want to know, is this always going to be New England IPAs? Is this going to be, is there going to be a Brute IPA in here maybe sometime soon, or something that might be a little bit more palatable for me? Maybe call it the Ken. I don't want to sound too full of myself here, but
right.
The
Ken,
I was going to say
the Ken PA. The Ken.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Well, that's the thing is, I try to not be the guy who's going to say no to ideas when it comes to something like this. So we've got a lot of ideas from our brewers. We only have 3 full-time guys at production, but they wanted to do a double clear rye IPA or a red IPA, stuff like that too. And if we get to do it again, I'm not gonna stand in their way, I should say. So you never know. We had a couple ideas for the first one. I think that was Rakau and Sultana hops or something, really fruity. And this one is a little bit, has more citrus and stuff in it too, but it's not up to me. It's up to them really. So if they want to come up with an idea to make a Ken approved IPA, my job is just to make all the balance work in the recipe. And if they want to throw this in it or that in it, we could try to make it work.
I mean, you could kind of make you like happy and upset at the same time and do something like a sour cherry alt beer.
Oh my God.
I thought that was just a bad ferment.
With ghost peppers. Add ghost peppers too.
Yeah, let's call it, let's all go to the movies and just, create a beer with diacetyl and, it's called Let's All Go to the Movies. Of course it's going to have butter flavor.
You'd save money on popcorn.
Wrong with that?
Zachary, thank you so much for joining us. At the end of the show, we all ask our final questions in a quick little round robin, and then we'll let you promo what's coming up for the rest of the year. I know you got your anniversary party coming up, but anything else we'll let you plug and make sure know how people can get to your brewery. But we're going to start with Dan. Dan, what's your final question?
Yeah, so I noticed you do a 95 calorie lager, which is pretty awesome. There's a lot of breweries you don't find anything like that at. Do you have plans of cashing in on the non-alcoholic craze, doing a non-alcoholic brew or anything like that in the future?
I've looked into it quite a bit. I don't have plans currently because we don't have room for the equipment it takes to do that and make it taste good. And that's kind of our holdback right now on a lot of that stuff. But right now that lager is kind of in on that. It's not alcohol free, but it gets that consumer that might want something that's brewed locally that fits that bill. And for now, that's where we're probably going to stay with that until something changes and I got room to put all the equipment I need to do that.
I tell you what, guys, I think what we need to do is we need to buy a brewery that specializes in contract brewing, and all we do is de-alc beer. That's it. That's all we do is we de-alc beer. I feel like we could make so much money because I think a lot of breweries want it, but they just don't have the ability to do it because they don't have the equipment, they don't have the time, sometimes the tank space. I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to have to put the money in. Dan said he's going to invest, so we're good to go. Wendy, what's your final question?
So a lot of times Big Lake is one of my go-to beers, depending on what I can find on the shelves. One of my favorites is the Tropical IPA. That's amazing. What is my next go-to beer going to be?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm supposed to answer that for you out of the 200 beers we've brewed in 4 years.
What's the next go-to beer? What should I be looking for?
Oh, man, if I had a crystal ball, I would know exactly what to brew every time. But I think it might just be something like, I almost don't even want to say it, but the craft lager thing is kind of up to me. It's like a brewed IPA where all the brewers tried to force it, but nobody actually wanted to buy it. But I think that something with flavor that drinks well, that you don't have to limit yourself to just one because of the alcohol or feel full or, like you're drinking a meal that's 300 calories. I think something full flavored without compromise is probably going to be where we see things going next. What that is, I'm not really sure, because if I did, I'd already have it and I just sent it to you. But other than that, it'd be something like that.
Nick, what's your final question?
All right. So Rob brought up the maize and blue, or the haze and blue, I should say, and the Sparti Parti. Holland, Michigan is home to Hope College. Will we see a Flying Dutchman haze type of beer coming out of Big Lake, since Hope College is home in Holland?
Well, I'd like to do it, obviously, but since how Hope College is a dry campus, I don't know how profitable that would be.
Oh, okay.
Well, hold on.
There's your NA right there.
Hold on. So is Arizona State, and it's the biggest party school in the country. So,
well, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but that's what I'm supposed to say.
I mean, that goes to Ken's idea. There's our NA. We de-alc.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
There you go.
What he's trying to say is they've looked into it.
We've looked into Wayne State too. We know the schools that are around.
You all know the Hope College people drink more than anyone too. So that's the best part about it.
We get a lot of staff from there.
Oh, I would imagine so.
We de-alc that and we call it Keep Hope Alive.
There you go.
Boy. Oh, you just won the night right there.
I was actually thinking de-alc Dutch or something like that. I don't know, but I think that one right there is the best. Thanks, Jesse. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Well, Rob, it's on to you. What's your final question?
Steals the show, guys.
My final question goes a little bit into Untapped. And obviously, just like Nick brought up about the Haze and Blue and Sparti Party, Ken gave me the stats on both of those beers. And I want to know which one you think had the overall better rating, Haze and Blue or Sparti Party?
Oh, is it like a quiz where I have to guess and then you're going to tell me if I'm right?
That's correct.
That's how quizzes work, Zachary.
I mean, I am a pub trivia host, so that is pretty much just what I do.
Well, if I thought of it, based on what I have to look at for my job, it would be based on sales. And sales surprisingly will throw you off. We sell a ton of Haze and Blue in Lansing and vice versa. And it'll even be down to one, let's say, chain store in Lansing will sell a lot of Sparti Party. Across the street, it's all Haze and Blue, even though it's in Lansing. So that is a real trick question. I think if I had a gut reaction, I would say it's probably Haze and Blue has the higher rating, but it's only because they can't handle Sparti Party.
So from what I have, Sparti Party, they both have at least 5,800 check-ins. Sparti Party comes in at 3.74. Haze and Blue comes in at 3.75.
Wow. So I was right after all, but barely.
Just barely.
But let me, if I could say, add something, Rob. The thing is, I think what's key is that there's consistency between the two beers.
Oh, definitely.
From a ratings perspective, and obviously it's Untapped. You don't take it for everything that it's worth, but being that I would say that they're close, I would say that they're consistent. And Zach's point to sales is concerned, I would say that that's probably more than enough. You're making consistently good beers with the consumers from a Untapped perspective, but the dollars and cents I think is what obviously trump that. So, but either way, I think that's a win-win in my opinion.
Oh, definitely. A house divided does not doesn't stop the money from coming in.
But to say Untapped ratings don't pay the bills, but the money does.
Hell no. Especially when it could be a 1-star. Wasn't hoping, didn't think this was an IPA, but then put it in, and it's a damn IPA. So
I gave it 1 star because it didn't have enough habanero in it. This is not habanero sculpin, guys.
Oh gosh! Did you just read my review? I mean, I'm a little worried here.
2017, Daniel. 2017.
All right. That's how long we've been doing this damn show. Before we go, I got my final question. Zachary, I noticed you finally brewed a Kolsch for the first time at Big Lake.
That's a great question.
With 3 Gattos. Now, I love what Linus is doing over there. That's the beer. I tell you what, I'm kind of upset that I didn't get a can of it. Is it getting distroed? 2, are you going to start making more Kolsches now that you've been professionally trained by someone as intelligent as Linus is in that kind of beer? And 3, after we get another Kolsch, are we going to get an alt beer?
Well, I say I don't have a crystal ball again for the future. The alt beer is probably on the least likely side, unfortunately. But no, the Kolsch thing with Linus was awesome. He's a great guy, obviously, and he does the Kolsch all the time. He does the mint skin. So he came over and we just kind of spitballed over a beer with me and my brewers and just said, hey, what do we want to do? Started throwing stuff at the wall until we all kind of went, hey, that might actually work. So we brewed a 6% Imperial Kolsch with, I believe it was Paradigm hops from Michigan and German Sapphire, and we both brewed the same thing. So they're only pub only, apparently. We can't get it onto distro. It's a small batch kind of a situation, but not small batch enough where it's like 5 cases and gone. It should be on tap for a little while here, but you got to go to the pub to get it. And as the second part, are we ever going to brew a traditional real Kolsch with Linus's blessing? It's already in the works. The guys liked working with Linus so much that the next small batch on the pilot system, they said, hey, let's just brew a traditional Kolsch next time because this is really good. So that's going to probably be coming too. But once again, that'll probably be pub only. With the distribution side of things, doing something like that would be a little bit more of a challenge.
Oh, I feel like then I'm going to have to wait a few weeks to get the Kolsch and the Imperial Kolsch and do a side-by-side tasting. That's going to do it for the Michigan Series, episode number 26. My name is Ken. With me are my hosts, Rob, Nick, Wendy, and Dan. Zachary, where can they find Big Lake Brewing?
You can find it through the entire state of Michigan through Imperial Beverage. So if you don't see it in your store, you can ask for it and they can send it by.
And you guys are located where's all your sit down pubs?
The pub is at 13 West 7th Street in downtown Holland, Michigan. Be sure to come out and see us. Beautiful beer garden, great beer, great food, great staff.
And you guys are part of the downtown district, right?
Yep. Yeah, we're part of the downtown social district. You can grab any beer you want. You know, we have a logo on it, and go check out the tulips, walk downtown, see the sights, come back and refill it, and off you go again.
That's going to do it. Don't forget to find us on all of our social medias, Better on Draft on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course, TikTok. Find out what we were drinking by friending us on Untapped Bod Podcast. And of course, you can listen to us live Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern at betterondraft.tv, facebook.com/betterondraft, or twitch.tv/pod podcast. No matter what you think of your beer, we think it's Better on Draft. Have a good night.
Peace.